Make it so a person with zero knowledge could understand it. Okay.
My previous workplace was an NGO hired me to do what was deemed an impossible task, reaching to and gaining the support of several groups that are notoriously difficult to recruit. It was a pretty critical point, with over $1.2 million funding depending on it. Not to brag, but this is something I'm actually expert in, one of very few in my country. I got to work and used some pretty unorthodox methods. Initially, management seemed to be fine with it, since it proved extremely effective. Within 8 months, the organization moved from being irrelevant at best to having a small army of volunteers, active groups and vocal ambassadors, and gained a reputation for being the most radical and interesting player on the scene. The thing is, the success was because I was there to cover for the organization's irrelevance. As long as they don't implement some deeper changes, this is as good as it will get. Except nobody seemed very interested at implementing any deeper changes. In fact, they began doing increasingly more problematic stuff. Think public racist comments by staff members, making it harder and harder to maintain the support. I kept raising the alarm that this will not end well, and at some point, this and my less than standard methods annoyed management enough that they decided to fire me. I pointed out to my manager that, if they don't want to lose all of the work, they'll at least have to recruit someone with similar experience, which is going to be very difficult to do again, very few experts on this. In response, my manager demanded that I write down a document for my future replacement, and, specifically, that I make it so a person with absolutely zero previous knowledge could understand it. Zero knowledge, you say? Alright. I sat down and wrote an extensive document, which included nothing but the most obvious, basic and offensively unhelpful information. No, you cannot call people, no, not even when they aren't present, phrased as if it was written for a third grader. If they hire someone competent, they won't need that document anyway. If they hire someone clueless, well, they'll probably be able to understand it. I ended my employment there in September, but stayed in touch with some of my former crew. By the end of November, half the volunteers I recruited dropped out. The 200+ people involved in one of the flagship projects just stopped showing up. The assistance network stopped responding altogether. An attempt was made to continue one of the other long-running projects, but since they didn't know how or why it worked, it flopped gloriously and stopped running after one more session. The annual fundraiser I started failed to have any relevance when they attempted to copy it this December, and only 7 people showed up. 3 of the groups decided to exit and operate under a different host, after also going public about the management being both out of touch and abusive. Oh, as of today, it seems like they lost the $1.2 million funding too. Honestly, I'd have written it for an 80-year-old too. Once hearing you're fired, or the equivalent, anything that happens is not your thing problem. Just grab your personal stuff and leave. Deadlines, open commitments, and pending responses are someone else's responsibility, even if the person hasn't been hired yet. Management can create situations where, surprisingly, shit does flow uphill. First, create a universe where normal matter beats out antimatter, set to cool for 500 million years. So you wrote it on a 3rd grade level, but it was too advanced for them. You tried. I have a technical job. My organization loves organization and technical documents. Therefore, my job is governed by a lot of SOP documents. Part of my job is to write/rewrite our own governing SOP documents. Several years ago, the higher-ups who oversee the SOP process, yes, this bloated August people whose job is to do this, proclaimed that they wanted all the SOP written so that they could take someone off the street, have them read/follow the SOP, and then be able to successfully complete the task. No. No. That's not how this works. This is a technical position. Job descriptions state that folks need to have a college degree, highly preferred that degree be science-related. Then there's the interview. If the person doesn't come across as being able to do technical work, then they aren't hired. Or shouldn't be, anyway. So after much pushback, they rolled back that mandate of writing things in such a basic manner. Thankfully.
Make me feel bad. Get to feel extremely embarrassed.
I work in asset financing for motor vehicles and land mostly. How it works is you find a nice piece of land or a nice car, but you don't have the full asset price. We buy the asset for you and you repay us within a specific period of time with interest, and we give you the deed to the property after you've cleared the loan with us. I'm just laying the foundation here. Well, I got to work at a customer service role for the job, and a client comes to request for his deed, in this case a logbook for his car, as he had cleared his loan. I check and find that his deed is not ready, and I asked him to come back in a couple of weeks. The client didn't want to hear this, as he needed proof of ownership for his vehicle and he wanted the document in that instance. I completely understood the client, though I couldn't do anything other than escalate the issue to the manager of the relevant department in the hopes that he'd figure something out. I went to his office and gave him a brief recap of the situation, and he said I was incompetent and lazy cause I couldn't handle the issue properly, and I have a habit of escalating unnecessary cases to him. This is coming from a guy who doesn't pick calls during working hours and spends most of his time on YouTube and TikTok. He also gets mad when you go to his desk for anything, especially work stuff. He asked me to get the client and watch how easily he could solve the issue. Turns out the client was more than he could handle cause the client started shouting at him as soon as I'd ushered him to the office. The manager started with the BS of it's the golf causing the delay and he needs to be patient. I was watching this and thought it couldn't get better. The client stood up and slapped the manager and scattered the contents of his desk all over the floor. Other staff heard and security escorted the client out. I'll never forget the looks the manager gave me after things had settled. He rarely speaks to me now and handles my escalations quickly and better. I always have a big old smile on my face when I recall this. English isn't my first language, so please excuse the errors, lol. Your manager is incompetent and lazy. He couldn't handle the issue properly. Hopefully the customer did beat some common sense into him. My last manager tried to show us how to handle a difficult customer. He took one of the calls from the tech, put the call on speaker so that we can all listen, and he had the rest of the office stop taking calls so we can learn. The caller proceeded to lay into him and he could barely handle it. It ended with him hanging up and telling one of the leads to block the person's number. She was a bit crazy from the get-go. 60% of the time it works 100% of the time. Delicious turnabout. I love this. As much as it's not cool that the client slapped him, and some clients/customers are out of line, you know now that you're not the only person he treats like this. Your manager is a dick.
Don't you respect my schedule? Okay.
This happened a few days ago at my work. I work as a monitor in a company that sells wholesale. We have rotating schedules, so if we have activities outside of work, we have to notify them in advance so they can adjust our schedule. It turns out that this is not the first time that they have told me that I should give more notice, so a week before the next week's schedules were made, I informed my leader about all my activities for the month. He clearly didn't like this, so he told me to send it to him in writing so he could remember and consider it for schedules. Well, if it had happened like that, I wouldn't be here. I needed to rest on a Sunday because the day I had baking classes and to come in the morning on Tuesday. When I saw the schedules, I got angry. As always, she did what she wanted. She gave me my rest on Tuesday, and on Sunday she left me in the afternoon from 2:30 to 11:00 p.m. My baking class was from 10:00 to 5:00 p.m, so it was literally making me choose between my class and coming to work. I was upset because it wasn't the first time it had happened, and I always ended up trying to convince other classmates to change my schedule or break so I could do my activities. I was tired of always looking for solutions for the things she did wrong, and she also had the impudence to take her rest on Sunday. Here comes my malicious fulfillment. I decided to pretend that I never saw the schedules and missed Sunday. I hate uploading statuses to my WhatsApp, but I decided at this time it was a special situation, so I started uploading statuses from my baking class. When I saw that my leader saw my status, I knew that I had won. When it was 3 in the afternoon, my boss, my leader's superior, asked me why I had been absent. I told her that I had not seen the schedules and that since I did what the leader asked me to do, which was to notify her in time and sending in my schedules in writing, I assumed that he had respected it. I knew that I was going to ask my leader, but I also know that she has a reputation as a liar, so I knew that she would try to twist things in her favor, so I sent her a screenshot of the conversation in which I told her in detail about my activities. She thanked me and didn't say anything to me. The next day, I found out that she was advised for that, and I got away with it without any repercussions. Then she tried to justify herself to me by saying that my boss had not approved the schedule. I know they're not going to pay me the day I was absent, but it was worth it to get her scolded, and let's see if she understands that if they don't respect my schedule, I'm just going to be absent and I'm not going to try to fix their nonsense anymore. I can't imagine not sending all requests in writing. Never just tell someone a change in schedule. Sounds like you did this the right way. Rule 1. Always have it in writing so you can see why later. Manager can lie all they want, but here's the email. You did it right. You had something in writing, so you were safe. Continue to do it that way as long as you have this kind of leader. When I went back to school, I worked an early morning shift and intentionally scheduled evening classes so that they would never interfere. When my manager found out, he intentionally started shifting my work schedule to interfere with my classes. He did stuff like that all the time, even scheduling one of our guys to work when he knew the guy had a cardiology appointment to save his life. I could go on and on about other abusive behavior. So I finished up the semester and took a break from school to focus on getting rid of him. With a sudden surplus of free time, I mounted an effort to unionize my company. I don't even like unions, but it was the right tool for the situation. As soon as the petition cards went out, he was sent on unpaid leave for the months-long duration of the campaign. We took it all the way to a vote, then lost. Badly. But management never wanted to go through that again, so they gave us a big raise and implemented a raft of changes to make our jobs better. Chief among them were to assign a much better manager to our department and revamp our leave and scheduling process. The old manager was allowed back in a diminished role where he didn't manage employees and had no contact with us ever. That was fine with us. We didn't care how he went away, as long as he just went away. You've got to be careful doing this. Most managers would say the schedule is always posted on next day and it's your responsibility to check your schedule. The next thing they could pull is, yes, you sent me your schedule request in writing. Could you please show me where I approve it in writing? If they're disorganized, you might be able to get away with it once, but after that, they'll start locking everything down with an emphasis on you because you got one over on them. Next time, don't send a status, no proof of what you did, but just call in sick. If every time your boss ignores your request, you call in sick the day, the boss has to cover every day they ignore your requests, and as long as there is no proof you were not sick.